This is India's #1 news network, and you're watching News 9. English news as it should be.
Hello and welcome, you are watching In Your Interest here on News 9. I am Krishna Kumar, and tonight the world of diplomacy is moving faster than usual. In less than 24 hours, US President Donald Trump's envoy Steve Witkoff will sit across the table from Russia's President Vladimir Putin at the Kremlin. Now, 2 days after that, Putin lands in New Delhi to meet India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi for their annual summit. The timing is not a coincidence, and India is watching every minute of the Moscow conversation. For India, the stakes could not be higher. We are watching closely because the outcome of this meeting directly impacts our oil supplies, our banking security, and our military readiness as well. The talks between Witkoff and Putin are expected to cover three big areas: a possible freeze in the fighting in Ukraine, strict limits on Western weapons going to Kiev, and a long list of economic deals as well. Among them are American investments in Russian projects and new infrastructure. Most importantly for us, the two sides will discuss easing sanctions on Russia's oil giants Rosneft and Lukoil, the very companies that send discounted crude oil to Indian refineries. If those sanctions are relaxed even a little bit, India's oil bill comes down and the threat of American tariffs on Indian exports become smaller. If the US and Russia find a way to de-escalate, it could be a dividend for India. It would legitimize our purchase of Russian oil and remove the constant threat of secondary sanctions on our banks and public sector units. If the talks stall, the pressure on New Delhi only grows. The Modi-Putin meeting later this week is packed with hard business. India wants the remaining S-400 air defense units delivered without any further delay, and it's seriously looking at the S-500 system and even the Su-57 stealth fighter with assembly lines inside the country. Both sides want to keep Russian oil flowing at lower prices and find safer ways to make payments that do not depend on the dollar, the US dollar. There will also be fresh agreements on nuclear power plants at Kudankulam in Tamil Nadu and on small modular reactors as well. The two leaders have set a target of $100 billion in annual trade, a number that looked easy 2 years ago, but now needs real effort because of sanctions and shipping problems. All of this happens while the US remains the elephant in the room. India still depends on Russia for 60 to 70% of its military equipment and spare parts. Walking away from Moscow is simply not possible. At the same time, America is India's largest trading partner, and the threat of tariffs hurts growth. Prime Minister Modi has to return from this summit with solid gains on defense and energy, yet send quiet signals to Washington that India is not choosing sides. The big questions that we are asking tonight: What's India's fallback if the Witkoff-Putin outreach meeting collapses and US tariffs stay? Will Trump stick to any deal with India even after a thaw in Ukraine? Can Prime Minister Modi balance Russia's legacy ties with America's new demands? And joining us here on In Your Interest tonight, Ambassador Bhaswati Mukherjee, former Indian diplomat; Adit Kothari, foreign affairs and geopolitical expert; Vishweshwar Reddy Kalavala, founder and chairman, Global Telangana Association. Joining us live from Washington, D.C., Professor Swaran Singh, Center for International Studies, JNU, also joining us. Thank you, all of you, for taking time out to be with us over here. I'm going to begin by asking Ambassador Bhaswati Mukherjee a quick... All right, we're just fixing the connection with Ambassador Bhaswati Mukherjee. Let me take this across to Vishweshwar Reddy Kalavala, who joins us live all the way from Washington, D.C. Vishweshwar, this is an important moment in time for the relationship, for both the bilateral relationship, the India-US bilateral relationship and the India-Russia bilateral relationship. So talk to us, this meeting of Trump's Ambassador Witkoff with at the Kremlin, across the table with Russia's President Vladimir Putin, that is really going to set the tone for Putin's visit to India and, more importantly, the India-US trade deal as well going forward.
Yes. Basically, what is happening here is, from Washington, D.C., it's the political capital of the world, right? So they deal with the people from various countries in a different analogy. Their numerics always needed, and their political analysis is always different, and their lobbying is always different. So especially India, Russia, and America. So they are, the biggest, countries, especially India and America as, biggest democracy countries. So where, recently, we have a great relationship with Russia, and we have a great relationship with America. But, recent past with Russia dealing with Ukraine and India dealing with Russia is, just gotten fired between India and America. So, in US, we already have, some, tariffs in place. It's not into one country. They are putting up a lot of tariffs to every country. What are they are aligning with or not aligning with? Okay. If they are aligned with that, they have less tariffs. If they are not aligning with, and they have more tariffs. And India is now at 50% right now after, our purchase, our imports of oil from Russia, and also our dealing with defense requirements with Russia. So America
what I want to ask is that what is the talk in the US in terms of the media reports and the general buzz around the meeting of Witkoff with Putin? Is that expected to end on a positive note? Is the US, doing its best to ensure that there is a deal that is struck?
I hope, and the discussion and debates in the analysis in the United States, what we are talking is, I think we'll get a good positive note.
Okay.
And also, we have a bilateral, we have a quadrilateral, discussions are already in place. Always, India has a great due diligence and talkings, we have a great asset of people, ambassadors, Indian ambassadors in various countries, or Indian intelligence of analysts of, people who are, trade deals. So they are very good at, and we are hoping that it will be in a positive note, and it will give a good strength to India, and it will give us great connections. We have people in Senate, Congress, there are people are in Pentagon, we have in White House, we have Capitol Hill people. Right. So they are already having a good dialogue with the country folks, and always India is aligned with Russia, not today. India and America also knows about this. This is not our relationship with Russia, and our relationship with America is always historical, and especially getting oil imports from Russia is very well known to US. So US is only because of the Trump administration 2.0, they are looking at seriously on this matter, to just because of the Ukraine war, right? Otherwise, there is no issues between India, Russia, and America. Fair enough. The only thing is they want to stop the Russian-Ukraine war. For that reason, India is the biggest, oil imports from Russia, and giving some supports to Russia in the war zone. So that's their assumption. And that's also a Trump administration thought process, not the intellectual dialogue. But US to India is always an open talk and open dialogue to discuss, debate, analyze, and close the matter.
Okay, fair enough. Adit Kothari, Adit Kothari, let me bring you in at this stage. There has never been a meeting so important that will decide the fate of two bilateral relations in one stroke. The outcome of this meeting is important for the US, it's important for Russia, it's important for India, it's important for global trade as a whole. But, at the end of the day, this is all eyes from India are on this meeting simply because one is the timing of it all. It is just before Putin arrives in India. And also, this is even as, we're all eagerly awaiting that phase 1 of that early harvest trade deal with the US.
To Krishna, I think I don't think you could have summed this up any better. The fact that Putin is going to be meeting Steve Witkoff, who is seen as a sort of a more Russia-tilted individual within Trump's inner circle. Just hours before he boards the flight to India, I think it has to be read with a lot of closeness, because the impact of that meeting will have consequences in India. The ripple effects are going to be very, very wide in India. So if it goes off well, India could be seen as that deal maker between Moscow and Washington, and that can be done without firing a bullet. And from a trade perspective, like you mentioned, the 50 billion trade that India has been having with Moscow, gets to ease out. We still get to purchase discounted Russian oil, and to further, more MOUs will be in place with the Su-57s and like you mentioned, the S-400s, etc. So all of that, is in limbo. But in case if it doesn't go well, I think the ramifications for India to sort of monkey balance its strategic autonomy becomes really difficult.
Yeah.
Because here you have, Trump, who's going to be in absolute chaos, and the whiplash is going to be on India with regards to trade tariffs and ensuring more isolation of Russia, which could further push Putin into strengthening other alliances like BRICS and SCO, where India is going to be a formidable part of due to its previous confidence building measures. So I think there's a lot in stake for India. And I think the meeting with Steve Witkoff is going to be watched very, very carefully around the globe.
Absolutely. Stay with us. Let me begin. Ambassador Bhaswati Mukherjee, former Indian diplomat, who is also with us. So thank you so much, Ambassador Bhaswati Mukherjee, for taking time out to be with us. This saying comes to my mind right now: killing two birds with one stone. That is what this meeting is looking like. This meeting is that one stone which can, sort out two bilateral issues that India faces, and more importantly, make that entire balancing act between Russia and the US far more simpler if this meeting between Steve Witkoff and Putin goes off well.
Yes, actually, we would be killing, Krishna, 3 birds with one stone, because we would hopefully be able to sort out the tariff issue. That's one stone.
Yeah.
Secondly, we would be able to convince Putin that in our concept of strategic autonomy, we have not abandoned him. We would give the same message later to Trump, and we would have made the position clear that this is one country of 1.4 billion people that has not groveled and been humiliated like many rich developed countries were sitting outside the Oval Office. We've done that program, you and I ourselves, and we have stuck to our position but shown flexibility, and we have made it clear that we are not responsible for the Ukraine conflict. To put it on India and to impose such high tariffs on India, as if punishing India as if we have gone into Kiev to invade it. I think if that ridiculous situation comes to an end, then indeed, Krishna, I would say we have killed 3 birds, not 2 with one stone. I think we would be doing it.
Okay. Professor Swaran Singh, let me bring you in at this stage. How optimistic are you that this meeting that all eyes are on will go off well? What are the chances? If I were to ask you, none of us can predict how these things are going to go, but considering the state of play and the situation we're in right now, how well do you think this meeting between Witkoff and Putin can go? What are the chances?
I don't think any major breakthrough can be expected from this meeting. As I understand, Steve Witkoff was in Moscow in April, then in August, and now in November. and he's been constantly in consultation with several other people over phone. What is very clear is that 28-point program that was originally seen as President Putin's draft for peace plan is shrunk now to 19 points, and several very significant points have been removed from there. And therefore, obviously, President Putin is going to put his foot down again. He holds very strong cards at this stage. So this kind of shuttle diplomacy is going to continue for some more time, definitely. And I don't think any clear indications are going to come from Steve Witkoff meeting President Putin. Second point, President Putin's visit to India definitely will bring all the global, particularly Western, and especially United States media searchlights on India as to what kind of grand welcome, red carpet welcome President Putin receives, who's been virtually not been able to travel. And he comes here, remember, soon after his visit to Bishkek, Kyrgyzstan, to address the meeting of CSTO, Collective Security Treaty Organization, of which Russia would be taking over as chair from 1st of January next year. And he's outlined his plans of equipping all these 10 countries with Russian weapons, having regular joint exercises, etc. So he comes with that upswing mood here to New Delhi. And in that sense, certain things are definitely going to happen. I think there is going to be a great deal of possibility of expanding cooperation in nuclear energy, which is not a problem for President Trump. He's worried about oil. There's also going to be possibility of ensuring some kind of trade balance by opening up a Russian economy to Indian exports, whether it is engineering or it is even skilled manpower, for example, is another issue on the table. So there are going to be areas where they will expand their cooperation. Significant area for cooperation which United States will be looking for is this whole debate of how India's imports of defense equipment has come down from once being 70% to now about 35-40%. That is where they are going to explore new opportunities. I think despite delays in delivery of S-400 air defense systems, there is likelihood of at least 2 regiments of these being ordered in this meeting, or some kind of understanding developing there. They are also going to work on how to accelerate and expand advanced versions of their famous BrahMos missile, cruise missile produced in India, how to take that program forward and look at other sectors, for example, in the full cycle of nuclear cooperation. So there is going to be several areas which are not highlighted by President Trump as a problem area for him. And as far as oil is concerned, I think India has already shrunk it from once being touching almost 4 million barrel per day to now coming nearly less than or about 1 million barrel per day. Whereas we have propitiated President Trump by buying his oil, which has reached about 500,000 barrels per day imports every day, plus 2.2 million tons of liquid petroleum gas to be purchased annually from Russia, from United States. So course correction is already in place from Indian side, and I think India would play that piecemeal, imperceptive way of taking relationship with President Putin forward. But what is going to perhaps, pleasing is difficult, irritate President Trump is this whole, I think, a fairly large-scale, grandiose India-Russia forum that is being addressed on 4th, on 4th and 5th. That will give President Putin a very large platform to address large number of people. And of course, his visit, the way he's treated in New Delhi, the way he gets global attention, that is going to perhaps worry United States.
So Swaran Singh, Professor Swaran Singh, you're already saying that irrespective of the way the meeting goes, that balancing act of Russia and the US that India will have to do is going to continue, and that's going to be getting more and more difficult. Bhasuti is also willing to set to enter. Give me a second. Let's just take across to Ambassador Bhasuti Mukherjee. Please go ahead.
I just wanted to say, in continuation of what my colleague Dr. Swaran Singh said, that the Americans are fully aware that we are not going to compromise on the nature and multi-dimensional relationship with Russia. They are fully aware of it. And there are people in the White House who have explained this repeatedly to President Trump. If he doesn't want to hear it or accept it, that is not our problem. We need the Russians for many things which we can't get from United States. And as Dr. Saran Singh rightly pointed out, the S-400 is very important. It proved its mettle in Operation Sindoor. And definitely we're going to get more S-400. But the important thing here, Krishna, is that how much influence does Mr. Bitkov have over Mr. Trump? There are conflicting versions which are coming. Some say that he was very close, now he's less close, etc. If he does have the ear of Mr. Trump, and Putin will definitely restore some of the points which the EU have deleted from the original peace plan. But Mr. Trump has no problems in reinserting it. That was limiting the size of the Ukrainian army, that putting brakes on their NATO membership. Those can be reinserted. In fact, he has made it clear, Trump, that he's hell-bent on this, bringing this conflict to an end. And I would say actually that since the Nobel Peace Prize nominations are, the last date is 18th of every year in January, if I'm not mistaken, or 19th. This would then be a situation where both Putin and Zelensky would nominate him for the Nobel Peace Prize, and India can do the same.
Okay. I think Professor Swaran Singh wants to come in. Professor Swaran Singh, please go ahead. And Adit after that.
I am less optimistic about President Putin, especially even Zelensky, who may not stay in office as soon as peace deal is signed. Then he will be on his way out. Despite that, whether they are going to nominate President Trump for the Peace Prize looks difficult to me. But it's interesting to see that how President Trump repeatedly keeps throwing us all kinds of deadlines. He gave the Thursday deadline to Zelensky earlier week. This Friday was a deadline for President Putin. But his own people, we are mentioning of Steve Witkoff. I mean, after you saw the 28-point peace plan, some people in media even mentioned that perhaps Steve Witkoff works for President Putin, because it looks like Putin's draft instead of a draft which was kind of to present all stakeholders. So I don't see that Steve Witkoff is going to anyway influence or change the mind of President Putin, who I say comes soon after the CSTO summit meeting, and he's coming to world's largest country called India. He is on an upswing. I don't think he is going to be influenced by Witkoff. Witkoff is going to go home with certain new dictation coming from President Putin to throw to
Okay, fair enough. Adit Kothari, you wanted to come in. Adit, go ahead.
So, going by Professor Singh's assessment that, Steve Witkoff has been there since April. He's been there a number of times, and he's had a number of meetings with Putin and his advisors and his close cabinet members. We've not seen any positive results yield so far, which would suggest that, this particular skirmish between Ukraine and Russia is coming to an end. And if that was to be the case, this meeting with Witkoff is going to be no different at all. I think it suggests that from an Indian prism of things, I think we should be reading this as a flop. And if this meeting is a flop, I think the consequences is going to be doubling down on India's position as the sort of voice of the global south, because I think Putin is going to come down very heavily. He's going to be looking at alliances of the BRICS and SCO, putting India deeper into sort of the anti-West sort of orbits. And that would, I think, make India's strategic autonomy bid, saying that, here we are strategically autonomous, and thus we can leverage our relations with both West and Russia very well. I think it puts that into a bit of a nervous sort of a stance. So I think it will be very interesting to see what that meeting happens, and then the consequences of them thereafter. when Putin does eventually come to India, what sort of MOUs are signed, whether we are getting Su-57s, and whether we are actually going to be, ready for a TOT on the BrahMos or not.
Right, Vishweshwar Reddy, at this stage, barring other things, everything from defense to energy, the big concern right now that this meeting goes off well especially for India, is that the tariff threat goes away, because the tariff threat is built upon this premise that India is buying Russian oil. The Trump administration has hammered that point down time and again, and currently we are suffering double tariffs simply because the US government led by Donald Trump's administration states that India is funding the war in Russia. So in that context, with double tariffs that India continues to face, continues to take on the chin, this meeting, the topmost priority for India is that the tariff threat is neutralized, isn't it? Both for Indian businesses operating in India and businesses doing business with companies in the US.
Yes, we are all hoping that to happen. Now, basically, these 25% was the regular tariff, and they added another 25% as a tariff for this Russian, oil deals and defense alignment. So historically, India has non-aligned with Russia and America, anytime, and India led the non-alignment movement historically. So we maintain very good equal distance. And also every time, as others spoke, we have to look at a positive notion. We have to look at it in a positive motion too. Here, the people have discussions, debates, but, we are hoping, we have, great business presence in the United States right now. There are, so many sectors, India is leading right now.
Okay.
And, a number of companies in Silicon Valley and also in pharmaceutical, everywhere, every sector, Indian business presence there. We are all looking forward to have a constructive and, proper talks to close this matter. Okay. And also, always India and America has a very great friendships. And our ambassadors, are, people who are here in United States and also in Russia. They are all, connecting well and, collaborating with both countries. Russia is always a great friend for India, many years. And, America also, Trump and Modi also very great, good relationship before.
Okay.
Only because of this, new fight, it's assessed in a different angle. Okay. And also now, it will be aligned slowly in a neutral and also closer, towards to closer line. So we are all hoping and we are all also supporting our Indian context to the government of United States and the Department of State and Department of, various departments in the trade. We are working with them. And also, hoping to complete this in a positive notion. And also, each dialogue will bring a good value to the discussion, right? So, these discussions are there. And also,
Professor Swaran Singh wants to come in the completely out of time over here. Professor Swaran Singh, please go ahead.
Just to say, I don't think tariffs are going to go any further.
Okay.
Highest tariffs he's imposed is 50%, which India is already facing. And I think you should also take note that now President Trump no longer mentions his anxiety about India buying Russian oil. Now the penalty tariffs have not gone as yet. But his speeches, he's not mentioning that part because he understands that not only we have reduced purchase of crude oil from Russia, we have agreed to buy oil and gas from United States.
Yeah.
In that sense, course correction has already taken place. So I don't think that reality is going to change. We might see that happening in a couple of months, maybe by end of this year or January end.
Okay.
But we are also seriously looking at alternative destinations for pharmaceuticals, for seafood, for everything else. In Russia, for example, in New Zealand recently, Commerce and Minister was there. So we are exploring alternatives to that.
Yeah. Even as we explore alternatives, we are keeping our eyes peeled on that meeting of Witkoff as well. We're completely out of time over here. Professor Swaran Singh, Ambassador Bhaswati Mukherjee, Vishweshwar Reddy, and Adit Kothari, thank you so much for taking time out to be this here on News 9. And with that, it's a wrap here from my side. Thank you so much for watching. This is Krishna Kumar signing off.
$25 लाख का हॉस्पिटल बिल है, कितने पैसे कहाँ से आएंगे?
पैसों की चिंता आप मत कीजिए पापा।
मैम, सर का हेल्थ इंश्योरेंस क्लेम अप्रूव हो गया है।
आप
पॉलिसी बाजार
पर 0 GST के साथ अब 1 करोड़ का हेल्थ इंश्योरेंस सिर्फ 550 रुपए महीने से शुरू।
What is speed? Do you ever see it? Or is it something you feel? Speed, it's relative. The more you speed up, the more the world slows down. And when you are fast enough, everything becomes still. That's when you see the world as it truly is. Servo Hypersport F5. When speed is your default.
आराम से हाँ। सामान देना भैया।
अब आगे क्या करना है? वो पिट्टू की पर्ची में देखो ना, कहाँ गई पर्ची?
नमस्ते
जी
हाँ? मुझे पता है वो पर्ची में क्या लिखा होता है। आप चलिए मेरे साथ। व्हीलचेयर।
ये आपका और ये आपका। पर्ची में शॉपिंग की बात तो जरूर लिखी होती है। थोड़ी पेट पूजा की बात कोई पर्ची में ना लिखे, ऐसा हो सकता है? टिफिन है।
थैंक यू।
अरे पर्ची मिल गई।
पर्ची में तो ये सब लिखा ही नहीं था।
हम है ना आपकी पर्ची।
सिर्फ वर्ल्ड क्लास एयरपोर्ट्स नहीं चलाते हैं, आपके सफर में हम सफर बन जाते हैं। अदानी, हम करके दिखाते हैं।
This is India's #1 news network, and you're watching News9, English news as it should be.
Ladies and gentlemen, big breaking news that's coming in at this point. The government of India has responded in Parliament on the reports of GPS spoofing near Delhi's IGI airport. That's the news that's coming in at this point. Civil Aviation Minister Ram Mohan Naidu told the House that some flights did report GPS spoofing while using satellite-based landing procedures on runway 10. He said contingency protocols were immediately activated, and importantly, there was no impact on overall flight operations as other runways were functioning with conventional navigation systems. The minister said DGCA had already issued an advisory in 2023 as tackling GNSS interference and has now put in place a new standard operating procedure effective November 10, 2025 for real-time reporting of GPS spoofing incidents around IGI airport. The Airports Authority of India has also asked the Wireless Monitoring Organization to trace the source of interference. The investigation and monitoring is ongoing. Being joined by Captain Prashant Dhalla at this point, who is a former flight operations inspector with the DGCA. Hello, good evening, good evening, Captain Prashant Dhalla. Thank you so much for joining us. Let's just break this down and make it very simple for us, for everybody who will be watching us. One, how big is the fact that the government has now finally told the Parliament and said that there have been cases of GPS spoofing in India, the latest near Delhi International Airport, the IGI airport, but also that this has been across 7 states. I mean, one is to understand what is GPS spoofing, but firstly, just how significant really is this and what does this mean for an ordinary flyer?
Thank you, Sneha, for having me on your show. GPS spoofing is now a global threat, I can call it, And now it is an established fact with the Honorable Minister stating it in the floor of the House today that, the country was at a high threat. I can have the liberty to use that word for aviation, for a fact that on your channel on the 8th of November, we had clearly mentioned, how the government of India was, proactive enough to issue certain guidelines circular. Now, with the minister stating it on the floor of the House that it is a threat, it is well understood for the public at large that cyber security is something which can impact the flight safety.
Right. Okay, now Captain Prashant Dhalla, break this down for us. For somebody who's watching this, what does a GPS spoofing really mean?
So let us understand primarily a major difference between spoofing and jamming. See, let us understand jamming first. Jamming is when your signals are interrupted. You don't have a signal strength of that effect by some miscreants. Maybe a device or maybe certain individuals, trying to stop the signals. Spoofing is when your aircraft is, the signals coming to the aircrafts are hampered. You are, being misled. There is a state of confusion in the cockpit. Your position is, hampered, and there can be a situation wherein the pilots gets confused about the location of the aircraft. That can majorly impact while you are landing, and also while you are in air at a certain altitude. So it is a very difficult situation as far as the navigation and the position accuracy of the aircraft is concerned.
Okay, now if you're saying that, it's very serious when you listen to this and when you're explaining and saying that your position may really, there may be confusion on the aircraft's position for that matter, the pilot's decision making. So when a viewer is watching and hearing what you're explaining, it's also possibly important to mention this is a tech problem, a new era problem, but there are also systems in place to check this.
That's right. The redundancy in the machine, the OEMs or the manufacturers, we call it, have certain safety measures for it. The pilots are trained to handle such situations. Although it's a big safety threat in terms of the operations, but the pilot is very well trained to handle such situations. And also there's a commonly used training given to the pilots, for a map shift, which clearly tells you that, you've been simulated in the simulator of a location where you're not exactly there. A pilot can, encounter such situation. And in that case, he changes to a manual mode, wherein he can safely navigate and reach the destination safely while ignoring these automated GPS or the GNSS systems inside the aircraft.
So, Captain Prashant, internationally, this is being reported. It's not like it's the first such case or it's unprecedented in India itself. Officially, I think in the parliament it's being stated for the first time. But globally, how recurring is this? And could you put the larger picture in place for us?
You see, the first instance, if I'm not wrong, was reported while I was in government service in 2023, wherein we were, fast enough to issue certain guidelines, was that this particular aircraft was somewhere at above 35,000 feet. And it was just normal circumstances wherein both the pilots who were inside the cockpit got a message from the Enhanced Ground Proximity Warning System, we call it EGPWS, that there is a hill in front of them. Now, this kind of a situation can only occur when you're actually having, a big mountain in front of you and your aircraft is heading towards that particular mountain. Whereas at 35,000 feet or above, you will never encounter such situation. That is the time when the pilots were prompt enough to inform the air traffic control unit that this system has misbehaved, the system has, tried to give them wrong signals. And, this kind of a situation occurred at various, airports all around the world, like you rightly mentioned. So the government said that let us have a reporting culture wherein the operator and the regulator can work together and try and get to the root cause of the situation. Now, with the, with so much of tech involved in this, operations of the airport, of the airline, and the training, we must have certain guidelines wherein if certain section of the society, the bad elements which we call them, are trying to hamper with the network or the service signals, so we are able to catch hold.
Captain Prashant Budhala, that's an interesting point you're saying. You're saying we must have guidelines. Are you then saying in terms of, say, GPS jamming, in contrast to, say, GPS spoofing? So are you then saying that we do not have appropriate guidelines in place in the Indian ecosystem, speaking particularly about?
No, we already have guidelines. The guidelines are already on the DGC website. We have a circular dated 2023, and also SOPs have been amended lately in November 2025. So the operators are also well versed with this. However, the involvement of cyber security and other government bodies should be together in this particular aspect. And we must have a joint committee who should look into this particular aspect of GPS spoofing.
Right. Captain Prashant Dhalla, thank you very much for joining us, breaking this down for us. It is a complex issue which doesn't have a straight answer, but like every tech challenge in our era, it's the best to have guidelines and systems in place to counter them. And from what we are learning at this point, India at least has that. But what is important is in the parliament, a specific mention of GPS spoofing, particularly formally being made by the aviation ministry. Very important developments there. Thank you very much, Captain Prashant Dhalla, for joining us. India has issued a major directive to smartphone makers. The telecom ministry has ordered that all new smartphones sold in India must come preloaded with the government's cyber security app Sanchar Sathi. That's on your screen. That's the app that you're on your screen, and we'll try to get you more pictures. I'm using the app on my phone as we speak, trying to navigate what really this app is. And with this app, according to the government, users won't be, the smartphone users are not going to be allowed